Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. We're going to talk all about programming today and specifically what makes it progressive. I was originally going to film this video tomorrow, but tomorrow's day ended up being absolutely wild. So instead of making this like a come vlog with me day and I'll take you along my day and explain programming along the way, I'm not going to have time for that tomorrow. So I am sitting on the floor post-editing a class because I'm going to be taking a kin stretch class in about 20 minutes. So in the meantime, we're going to use our time wisely and we're just going to like sit down, chat, grab a little cup of coffee if you want it, and let's talk about programming right here. So I get asked all the time about other people's programming, and specifically what I get asked a lot is this a good program? And to answer that, I need to know what your goals are. Otherwise, I'm gonna have no idea if it's good or not because I don't know if it will serve your goals because I don't know your goals. Does that make sense? Quite often people will come to me with weight loss as a goal, and that goal is perfectly fine, but I will say weight loss is gonna be more tied to your nutrition, your sleep, and then your daily movement outside of your workout because your workout is a very small part of a few days of the week. So to be honest with those people, I usually say pick whatever makes you excited. Pick whatever is gonna make you excited to show up, and hopefully you're lifting up and putting down heavier things at least once or twice a week. Simply because having some more lean muscle mass on your body is going to help support the weight loss goal. Now, in other cases, people will come to me with actual strength goals, whether it's wanting to learn their first push-up or pull-up, whether it's wanting to be able to snatch 16 kilograms overhead, or maybe they just want some general full body strength to help support their daily life. So in that case, you actually do want to make sure that you're following something that's progressive. So today we're going to explain what progressive means. And let's start with the definition right there. What is progressive? A progressive program is essentially where you're adding on to the same base program week after week or session after session. I'll give you some examples in a second, but just stick with me on this. If you're following a program where you never repeat the same workout or even the same movement patterns, I don't think it's progressive. If every single workout is completely different, it's not progressive. If you want to get stronger and better at things, you have to repeat them. And I know a lot of people don't like that, but this kind of becomes the tough love, right? Do you want to get stronger and better at things, or do you just want to move and stick to your routine that way? Like you actually can't have the best of both worlds, unfortunately. So you need to be able to find things that do satisfy that crave for being different enough, but still finding that repetition in there. And again, we're going to talk about examples at the end. Because think of it this way. If you start to learn a song on an instrument that you play, right? Like I play the piano and I'm not a good enough sight reader, so here's where this comes in. But imagine I get sheet music and I play it once and then I go, great, that's it. And I never try it again. I'm never going to get better at it. I'm never going to be good at it even. So that's just an easy way for the everyday person to look at a program and spot, is this actually progressive? Is this actually going to help me get stronger in the movement patterns programmed? So let's chat a little bit more specifically of the different ways that you can progress a program. First and foremost, and this is the most common, reps and sets. This one's pretty simple. As you get stronger week to week, you can add more reps or sets to really challenge yourself. I do this in my own workouts with reps. I'll typically start an exercise at 3 sets of 6 reps, then I'll increase it the next week to 3 sets of 8 reps, then the next week 3 sets of 10 reps. Then I'll add weight to the movement and start all over again at 3 sets of 6. And that brings me to my next example of how to progress your programming. Adding more weight. As you get stronger, adding weight is a super simple way to progress exercises. Keep in mind that you won't be able to add weight on as quickly when you're more advanced because we definitely have a limit to how much our body can lift. Otherwise, we'd all be deadlifting like 1,000 pounds because we would just keep adding on weight. Now, let's say you don't have access to unlimited amounts of weight. This is where programming gets fun. The next thing you can vary is your tempo. A great way to challenge yourself is through a tempo change, whether it's moving slower, faster, taking a pause, and your goal can definitely influence this option too. But let's just take a goblet squat, for example. If you don't have access to more weight and you want to progress your squat, instead of trying down for 2, up for 2 for your tempo, maybe you try down for 3, up for 1. I always call these tempo goblet squats, and essentially what you're doing is taking your time on the eccentric, lengthening, holding at the bottom, and then you have to dig yourself out of the hole without losing form, shooting back up nice and fast. So it's a little bit more of an athletic type of squat. You won't be able to lift as much weight, but again, if you don't have access to a ton of weight, this is a really great way to progress your strength in your goblet squats. Another option for progression is where you hold the weight. Let's stick with the goblet squat as an example. For this, you could definitely hold the weight out further in front of you to get a little bit more of your arms and your core engaged, but you could also offset the weight to the shoulder. This challenges your core in a completely different way because we're going from an anti-flexion and extension exercise to an anti-lateral flexion and extension exercise. Whew, say that 10 times fast. And then a nice added bonus here is that your shoulder and your core also get a little bit of progression, not just your legs. And finally, this is one of my favorite ways to progress programming is varying your stance. If we're sticking with a goblet squat, for example, instead of staying bilateral, you could progress to a split squat. And as you go through your split squat, you could vary the weight position. Goblet, offset low contralateral, offset low ipsilateral, offset racked contralateral, offset racked ipsilateral. That was so hard to say. And then you can progress the split squat to a rear foot elevated and go through all of the same progressions. And then you could even progress to Bulgarians and go through all the same progressions of your weight distribution. When you look at it like this, the options are really endless. And if you literally just took all of these different squat variations, so bilateral, and you went through these weight positions, split squat, rear foot elevated, Bulgarian with all of those weight positionings, you have like 20 or 30 weeks of programming right there. So when you zoom out and just look at it that way, almost like scientific, once you have your base exercises picked out, it actually becomes really natural how to progress them over time. So I want to give you an actual example. This is from my runner strength program, and I was actually refilming some of the base workouts in it over the past month because, to be honest, I just have a better camera now. And I'm always just trying to make sure that things in the Fit Club are like top tier. I'm always going back, trying to redo things and making sure that the programming is still top tier. So over the past 4 weeks, I've been doing a functional strength series. It's mostly lower body work. And I just want to show you how I utilize some of these different factors when it comes to the programming of these workouts. There's 4 main exercises in this workout. First one is step ups. This is going to be a great exercise for runners because of the single leg strength, pelvic stability, and lower body strength required. So we started with a step up. Then on week 2, we actually worked on a step down. So this is where you're coming down off the step, maybe halfway, maybe all the way to the floor, depending on your strength and the height of the step. But in this variation, we're working a little bit more on that slow eccentric lengthening of the glute hamstring. Then week 3, we progressed this to a lateral step up. So now we're basically working the same movement pattern, but we get a little more inner thigh engagement. And then finally on week 4, we did a lateral step down. So same concept, but we're just progressing it into that lateral stance. Next exercise is an elevated bridge. This is a great exercise for hip extension, which is a basic movement pattern in the run. We get an added hamstring bias, which is super important for runners because that's going to be the main protector of your ACL. We also get some great ankle stability. And then anytime we're in isometric holds, which I did twice in this progression, it's going to be really good for your tendon and ligament health. So we started with a bilateral isometric elevated bridge, so just holding up at the top. Week 2, we did the same thing, but we moved it. I always love to start people with an isometric hold simply because if you can hold the position, now you're going to be strong enough to move through it and maintain proper form. Then we did a single leg iso hold. Then the final week, you guessed it, we moved it, a single leg elevated bridge. The next exercise we worked on was 2 different rear foot elevated single leg strength drills. In a perfect world, I would have loved to just work on Bulgarians in this entire program, but I wanted to include some variety because that is just what people seem to enjoy the most with these types of follow-along classes. Now, in regards to runners, single leg strength is really just every benefit that I've listed above, but if we think about running, it's a single leg exercise, so that's why I'm really drilling this in this program. So like I said, we started with Bulgarians, and then the last 2 weeks we worked on single leg elevated deadlifts or rear foot elevated deadlifts. But for people who are a little bit more advanced in these, I did encourage different weight positions or different weights in general week to week so that they could progress themselves. And then finally, we worked on some different side planks. These are going to be great for runners because of the pelvic stability, inner thigh strength, and really connecting that oblique chain. We started first with a hand elevated side plank. Then we moved down to a modified Copenhagen. So you've got a 2 joint stability on the bottom, knee and ankle. Then we worked into a top leg elevated side plank. I'm kind of just making up names for these, but making it as clear as possible what they are. This is going to target more of the abductor, which is bigger muscle groups, than our final variation, which is a full-on Copenhagen plank, which is very, very challenging on the inner thigh complex or your adductors, which are just smaller muscles. And the nice thing about this is that you have a nice 4-part progression. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable in the progression we're doing that week, all they have to do is take it back a week. Whew, I feel like I was just talking gibberish for the past 5 minutes. So hopefully that was helpful and gave you a little bit more insight into what progression actually means and can look like. But again, the biggest, simplest lesson that you can take from this is if you are following someone's program and you never repeat the same workout, you never repeat the same structure, you never repeat the same exercises, it's not progressive, they probably don't know what they're doing, and they're just pulling random crap. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and I will see you all in the next one.